The National News Desk, locally covered, nationally connected. You could call it one of the most bipartisan.
They are criminally liable at the DOJ and FBI.
All right, you could call it one of the most bipartisan votes ever taken in the U.S. House. We're going to get you more on the Epstein files. Sorry for our technical difficulties here. Moving on. Then the city federal agents arrived in today as the Trump administration expands its immigration law enforcement crackdown. Also, another outage at a major internet company. What caused it and what experts say is a troubling pattern in an overwhelmed cyber system. Good evening. I'm Taylor Murray. Welcome to the National News Desk, America's News Now. Coming up at the White House in about 40 minutes, President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump will be welcoming Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman back to the White House for a formal receiving line followed by a state dinner. This follows a day of meetings between President Trump and Prince Mohammed at the White House. President Trump pulling out all the stops for his arrival earlier today with a military flyover, cannons and horses. It's bin Salman's first visit to the White House in more than 7 years since the CIA concluded Saudi agents killed Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi, which the Crown Prince denies. Shortly after his arrival, President Trump defended bin Salman when he was asked about Khashoggi during an Oval Office meeting.
As far as this gentleman is concerned, he's done a phenomenal job. You're mentioning somebody that was extremely controversial. A lot of people didn't like that gentleman that you're talking about. Whether you like him or didn't like him, things happen, but he knew nothing about it, and we can leave it at that.
The two leaders also discussed defense sales related to F-35 fighter jets, which President Trump reiterated are moving forward. And today, Trump was expected to push for Saudi Arabia to sign the Abraham Accords, but for now, it appears the Saudi government's position remains unchanged. When asked by the press about it, the Crown Prince expressed interest, but only with a pathway to Palestinian statehood, which the Israeli government rejects.
We want to be part of the Abraham Accord, but we want also to be sure that we secure a clear path of two-state solution. And today we have a healthy discussion with Mr. President that we're going to work on that.
Now, during his visit, the Crown Prince announced Saudi Arabia will increase its investments of $600 billion in the U.S. economy to nearly $1 trillion. In other news now, just in, the Senate has agreed to vote to pass a bill that would force the Department of Justice to release its files on the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. It comes after the House overwhelmingly voted earlier today to pass the bill. Republican Representative Clay Higgins of Louisiana was the only member to vote against it, citing victim privacy concerns. House Speaker Mike Johnson said GOP leadership was put into a very difficult situation on the vote, but Democrats do not see it that way.
All this stuff was sitting in a warehouse, and nobody said a word about it. They didn't care. Now they're doing it. We all know why, because they're trying to attack President Trump.
And when Republican leadership is protecting pedophiles, you're going to have Democrats, Republicans going, that's insane. You cannot do that. And that's why this discharge petition was successful.
And again, the measure is expected to clear once the Senate takes up a vote on it, once they receive it, possibly as early as tonight. Then it will head to President Trump's desk. The DOJ says Epstein exploited over 250 underage girls. Today's House vote brought several victims to Capitol Hill to share their stories and call for more action. As the National News Desk, Christine Frizzau reports.
This fight belongs to us. We lived it, and we know the truth.
Victims of the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking ring say they've spent the last 5 presidential administrations trying to bring the secrets out of the shadows.
This is me. This was me. This was me when I met Jeffrey Epstein.
Many as young as 14 at the time say their long journey finally brought them to Capitol Hill.
These are real stories, real trauma, and it's time for you to stop just talking about it and act.
Prominent Republican and Democratic lawmakers who pushed for the release of the remaining files celebrated their momentum.
We fought the president, the attorney general, the FBI director, the Speaker of the House, and the Vice President to get this win.
But legal questions remain. especially after the announcement of a new investigation into Democrats mentioned in the files, which some warn could give the Justice Department cover from having to release the documents.
My gut hunch is that Attorney General Bondi, having just been ordered on social media by the president to open an investigation into a series of high-profile Democrats, will promptly say, oh, no, there's an ongoing investigation. We can't disclose any of this. And the president will back that up.
The president's probe set to include former President Bill Clinton and former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers. Just released emails reveal Summers repeatedly emailed with Epstein long after he was convicted in sex crimes. Summers just announcing he'll be stepping away from his public commitments. President Trump says he'll sign the bill despite spending months fighting against it.
I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. I threw him out of my club many years ago because I thought he was a sick pervert.
While voting for the bill, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson made clear he had hoped it would include more protections for victims and whistleblowers. Taylor.
And Christine, you mentioned that the alleged survivors accusing Jeffrey Epstein of sex trafficking are calling for more action. So what specifically, in addition to releasing the files, do they hope to see?
So getting the complete files released is, of course, an important first step. They also mentioned, though, since they've been in the public eye a lot more lately, they have been hearing from more and more victims from around the world who are not only sharing their stories, but some evidence as well. They're vowing to make things public themselves if they don't come out of the Justice Department.
In Washington, D.C., Christine Frizzell, thank you. Well, a shocking discovery for a person in Colorado after winning a bid for a storage unit of more than 1 million counterfeit fentanyl pills were then found inside. The bidder immediately contacted the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. Law enforcement ultimately identified approximately 1.7 million counterfeit fentanyl pills and 12 kilograms of fentanyl powder that had the potential to yield up to an additional 6 million pills. Additionally, 2.5 pounds of methamphetamine were seized. The registered owner of the storage unit was already in federal custody when that unit went up for auction, and the DEA says this was the largest one-time seizure of counterfeit pills in Colorado history. Well, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum is responding to President Trump's threat of striking drug cartels in Mexico. Sheinbaum told reporters today it's not going to happen. It comes after Trump said yesterday he was open to striking inside Mexico if it's necessary to stop the flow of drugs. The Trump administration later said it would only do that with Mexico's permission, according to Sheinbaum. Well, a man is facing charges after a boat carrying migrants from Mexico to the U.S. was capsized near San Diego on Friday. You're taking a look at it behind me after it washed up on California's Imperial Beach. 4 passengers were on board and they were killed, according to the U.S. Department of Justice. Actually, 5 more people were on board as well, but they were rescued. Authorities believe David Alfonso Barrera Nunez was the captain of that boat, and if convicted on the most serious charges he's facing, he could get life in prison or the death penalty. Taking a look now at Raleigh, North Carolina, where federal agents are on the ground for a new immigration enforcement operation. Raleigh's mayor is asking residents to remember their values and maintain peace throughout the operations. It's unclear how long agents will stay in that city. But over in Charlotte, at least 200 illegal immigrants have been arrested since Border Patrol arrived over the weekend. This is according to the Department of Homeland Security. DHS says many of their criminal records include things like aggravated assault, hit and run, and known gang membership. The operation is facing pushback, however, from some in Charlotte, including the mayor, who says she's deeply concerned. The National News Desk Jan Jeffcoat spoke with a North Carolina Congressman, Mark Harris, who said he's optimistic.
We've got a serious issue going on in Charlotte. Not only have we seen crime issues that have taken place, but I think that I saw a report just, I guess it was yesterday morning, that Charlotte is one of the top cities in the nation in human trafficking. And I think that's a great concern. And so, you know, when Border Patrol decides where they're going in, they have their own intelligence that they have been able to muster. They have their own information, and they choose these areas because there are suspects that they are looking for, and they have information that would lead them there.
You can watch Jan's full interview with Congressman Mark Harris at thenationaldesk.com. Meanwhile, the mayor of a Chicago suburb declared a civil emergency on Monday. Broadview Mayor Katrina Thompson activated the order after she said she received a death threat. Officials say there was also a, quote, serious and credible bomb threat directed toward the village. The last two Broadview Village board meetings ended abruptly after chaos broke out. The civil emergency order calls for all future meetings to be conducted remotely. And of course, over several weeks, protesters have repeatedly gathered near Broadview's Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility and clashed with federal agents, as you're seeing here. Thompson's order will stay in place until she deems her community's emergency no longer imminent. This as hundreds of National Guard troops, meanwhile, are being sent to Chicago and Portland, are going to be sent home to their home states of California and Texas. This is according to a defense official. The ones who stay will remain off the streets as legal battles play out, with Democrats continuing to oppose the Trump administration's immigration and crime crackdowns in cities. And a judge has blocked the use of National Guard in Memphis, Tennessee, siding with the Democratic officials who sued. But the block is on hold to let the government appeal. Both plaintiffs and the state acknowledge the governor of Tennessee did not put out an order to trigger the deployment, but did send out a statement. In September, President Trump announced the National Guard would be deployed to Memphis to help combat crime. A person of interest is in custody after a woman was set on fire on a Chicago L train. This is according to authorities. Police said a man poured fluid on her and lit her on fire last night on the Blue Line. Witnesses said it all began with an argument. The woman was then taken to the hospital and is in critical condition with severe burns. Her current condition is unknown this evening. Coming up, a dip in sales at one big box home improvement store. How economists say it's telling a story about the state of the economy. Then improving safeguards for children. What an online game company says it's changing amid mounting lawsuits. Plus, chilling comments from a Washington state father accused of kidnapping his own children. How investigators say he was planning brutal copycat murders. A massive outage today of the internet company Cloudflare disrupted online shopping sites, chatbots, and social media platforms. This comes less than a month after the Amazon Web Services outage that impacted thousands of companies. The National News Desk, Atra El-Nashar, takes a look at what's causing these outages.
An outage at Cloudflare triggering a disruptive domino effect worldwide. The internet infrastructure company powers performance and security for millions of websites and digital assets.
It consolidates security, connectivity, and development services on one cloud platform.
When that platform goes down, so does much of the internet.
Most of the internet relies on a handful of these sort of super infrastructure companies, and basically they provide the basis and the basic functioning of these sites.
Madrid is not working. Australia network issue. Internal server error when trying to access site. Also can't log into dashboard. Just a few of the real-time complaints from Cloudflare customers Tuesday morning. The company's chief technology officer saying in a social media post, in short, a latent bug in a service underpinning our bot mitigation capability started to crash after a routine configuration change we made. That cascaded into a broad degradation to our network and other services. This was not an attack. Last month, a bug in automation software triggered an outage of Amazon Web Services, and last year, one of the largest IT outages in history occurred when CrowdStrike's faulty security update caused Microsoft Windows systems to crash. Cybersecurity expert Taylor Rach tells me these providers are simply overwhelmed.
I think that what is happening is a handful of providers is struggling to keep up with the demand of the last 5 to 10 years that has just increased exponentially online.
This is also a national security issue. On Capitol Hill, Democratic Senators Ron Wyden and Mark Warner are leading calls for the Federal Communications Commission, or FCC, to maintain minimum cybersecurity standards for America's communications sector. They point to the years-long Chinese Salt Typhoon hack the intelligence community says is still a threat. Instead, this week, the FCC is expected to vote to roll back Biden-era rules for network security the Trump administration views as government overreach. In Washington, I'm Atra El-Nashar for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
President Trump has rekindled his dust-up against Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, saying his officials are preventing Powell's termination.
He's done a terrible job, hurting housing a little bit. The truth is, we've been so successful, we've blown past his interest rate stupidity. He's been wrong. That's why I call him too late. He's too late. Jerome Too Late Powell.
Trump says he's already made up his mind about Powell's successor, but won't say who he plans on nominating. Powell's term is up next year. The Fed chief and Trump have a strained relationship, mainly because of the president's disagreement over rates staying high. Well, Home Depot has announced sales at its stores open for at least a year increased only 0.2% last quarter. This slowdown is not a good sign for the overall economy. The home improvement company has slashed its profit forecast for the year. The CEO blames cautious customers and a stalled housing market. Home Depot is seen as a bellwether for consumers and the housing market. Well, the Trump administration is taking aggressive steps to bring down the price of beef, which President Trump says is still too high. Now, that includes rolling back on some tariffs and opening up grazing land to rebuild the herd. The National News Desk, Angela Brown, has more on this.
If you love burgers, this may sting. The president of Omaha Steaks now warning ground beef could hit $10 a pound.
We are headed for what I'm calling, Maria, the $10 a pound reality. By third quarter of 26.
The latest numbers from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. Ground beef costs an average of $6.32 in September. Now that's up from $5.67 last year. High feed costs, years of drought, small cattle herds, some factors pushing prices higher. Our team in Texas talked to cattle buyers seeing it firsthand.
Cow herd in America is the lowest it's been in like over 70 years.
Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rawlings says the administration is taking multiple steps to grow supply and increase competition.
We are moving toward opening up 5 million acres of grazing land. We're obviously at some point soon going to be reopening the borders. We've got screwworm under control south of the border. Still a couple more things before we get there, but we're getting close.
But it's not just beef. Food prices overall. Grocery prices are up 2.7% from a year ago. Sinclair reporters talked to shoppers in Wisconsin trying to save a buck.
I think we're just trying to make things stretch further, so trying to be good stewards of what we're buying, buy things when they were on sale. We were here Friday because they had Friday only sales. You could get a pork chop for 77 cents. That's screaming deal.
And prices could stay elevated for a while. Rebuilding the herd takes time, but more meaningful herd growth is forecast for January 2027. A federal judge handed Meta a major win over the Federal Trade Commission, ruling today that the tech company did not break antitrust laws. The ruling caps a legal saga, which began during President Trump's first term when Meta acquired Instagram and WhatsApp for $19 billion. The FTC had asked the judge to break up the acquisition, arguing that it was a way to get rid of competition. The judge says prosecutors failed to prove their allegations. Well, the popular online gaming platform Roblox says it is improving safeguards for children. The company plans to use AI-based facial age estimation technology to help check users' ages. It's meant to prevent communication between adults and minors who don't know each other in real life.
What we're here sharing today is we're really introducing what we believe will be the new gold standard for safety and civility on the internet. We're the first major gaming platform and really major social platform to lean into knowing the estimated age of everyone on our platform.
Roblox is being sued, accused of failing to protect children from sexual predators.
The fact is, none of us should be here today. This tragedy should have never occurred. Lives should have never been lost. As with all accidents that we investigate, this was preventable.
We know more now about what caused the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore last March. Today, the National Transportation Safety Board said a misplaced wire label led to a power outage on the cargo ship that crashed into the bridge. Now, this, of course, comes as the cost of rebuilding that bridge has more than doubled. Maryland transportation officials say it will cost somewhere between $4 and over $5 billion. The previous estimate was less than $2 billion. Officials also extended their estimate of when the bridge will be ready for traffic from 2028 to 2030. Coming up, competing petitions over a Charlie Kirk memorial on the campus of Utah Valley University, where that political activist was assassinated. More on the pushback and the support. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter to you. We are taking the pulse of America, and we start in Washington State.
We know we needed to get these kids back safe. That was our priority.
The reason obvious: two siblings abducted, a father accused of kidnapping his own children and threatening to kill them. On top of that, a chilling connection revealed inside these court documents. The children's mother telling police that the suspect mentioned, quote, he was going to be like Travis Decker and kill the kids. Decker, whose remains were discovered in September after a massive manhunt, is the same man authorities believe kidnapped and killed his 3 young daughters in June.
We're all aware of the Decker case and its impacts on people across the state. I can tell you that, we acted on the information we had in this case, and it was really our priority was just finding these kids, and thankfully we found them safe.
And their dad in custody. A judge wouldn't let us show him in court. He's not yet charged.
The fallout continues after a massive federal operation that shut down San Pedro Avenue early Sunday morning. An FBI and Homeland Security statement clarifies that they arrived with multiple other agencies. The operation was tied to disrupting Tren de Aragua, a Venezuelan gang This is part of the newly formed Homeland Security Task Force, FBI San Antonio and HSI San Antonio coming together to take down trans-international crime organizations. One local worker, Derek Garcia, was surprised to see all the commotion when he arrived at 7 in the morning.
Hey, what's going on over there? They tell me, yeah, there was a big raid.
According to the statement released, the operation resulted in the arrest of more than 140 undocumented migrants from Venezuela, Honduras, Mexico, and other South American countries. They have all been taken into ICE custody.
It's sad what happened, but unity is the best thing at this time. So, yeah, I'm not against the Charlie Kirk Memorial as long as it's off campus.
A polarizing debate has emerged on campus, with students pushing competing petitions on change.org. One petition with more than 15,000 signatures calls on UVU to prevent a Charlie Kirk Memorial, calling him a controversial figure whose views do not represent values of inclusivity and diversity. A dueling petition in support of the memorial has nearly 22,000 signatures and says it would both honor Charlie Kirk and serve as a reminder of the value of communication over violence.
It's kind of the elephant in the room, you know? It's like, what all happened?
For some students, their opposition is about trauma. The university formed its own independent memorial committee, which includes students, political leaders, and other stakeholders. Turning Point USA, which is advocating for the memorial, tells 2 News that opposition represents a vocal minority.
Coming up for auction, a famous watch from the Titanic just might fetch one of the highest bids ever of artifacts recovered from the infamous shipwreck. Stay with us. A famous watch from the Titanic may break records when it heads to auction soon. According to English auction house Henry Aldredge & Son, the fascinating relic recovered from the Titanic disaster is expected to fetch around $1.3 million. This would make it one of the most expensive Titanic artifacts ever sold. The 18-karat gold pocket watch belonged to a prominent businessman, Isidore Strauss, who, along with his wife Ida, perished in the shipwreck. And that watch was actually frozen in time at 2:20 the moment the ship sank. Pretty incredible. All right, that's all the time we have for this edition of the National News Desk. I'm Taylor Murray. Thanks for watching.